Hello, everyone. Should I say bonjour and hello? I am here today with Anna from English Like a Native, and I'm super, super excited to hear what Anna has to say about language and how to learn the language. Now, I know that I am the a French teacher, and Anna does pretty much the same thing as I do, but in English. And weirdly, Anna, I'm a French teacher, but I teach French in English. So English is really, really important to me. Now, I have a question, and if you have questions for Anna, please don't hesitate. And towards the end, I will ask you to ask questions about top tips or whatever you want about languages in general. Now, first of all, Anna, could you please introduce yourself?
Yes, of course. Hello, everyone. I'm Anna. I don't think I live too far away from you, Alexa, actually. I think you're in the south as well.
Yes, yes, I am.
Yes,
Yeah.
I feel like we've both been to the same workshop and that you live actually quite close to me. I'm very happy to be here because I'm a big fan of you, Alexa, actually. I love what you do on your channel.
Really?
And yeah, and yeah, I do all the social media. So I've got the YouTube channel, English Like a Native, alongside a few other channels, and then all the popular platforms as well, just juggling it all. And I've got two young children as well. So I'm a very busy lady with lots of plates spinning.
Yeah. Now, my question is that how did you? I'm very curious about your career and how you decided to become a YouTuber. Now, let's remind everybody that you have 854,000 followers on YouTube, which is close to a million. So that's quite something. And you have quite a successful Instagram channel as well, or page. I'm not sure about TikTok. But
Yeah, it's the same size
same size.
as
Okay.
Instagram. Actually, it's
Yeah.
yeah.
And so my question is, how did you get the idea of becoming a YouTuber for teaching English?
hmm it kind of all. I always think the universe almost lays the path for you sometimes, and I started out in performance, acting, singing,
Right.
and I've always had a love of language, a love of voice production, and I was teaching singing and elocution as a kind of side thing to my performing. And I started putting some of my singing tutorials and warm-ups onto YouTube for my
On YouTube.
singing students.
Okay.
Yeah, and then that started getting lots of views from people who weren't my students. And then it just became very popular, and I thought, oh, so there are people around the world I could benefit just by uploading things onto YouTube. So I started with my singing channel,
Right.
and then I moved into uploading kind of pronunciation videos as well, because that's what I was also very into. I enjoyed teaching pronunciation, elocution, and confident public speaking. And again, that took off, but more people were asking me things like vocabulary and
Ah,
idiomatic speech and things. So it just kind of branched out. I just kind of listened to my audience and gave them what they wanted, and then
what they
obviously the
wanted.
English channel really grew.
Yeah.
So
No, it's interesting that you didn't intend to start with as becoming an English teacher, um,
mhm.
but it was a voice teacher, an elocution teacher, and that it turned out to become very popular as an English teacher. So where do you get well, I was going to say, where do you get your passion from, but it's obvious that the original idea was that you would do acting, or you would do voice,
Yeah.
and you would do, yeah, so
Yeah,
that.
I loved Shakespeare, so I've always wanted to be the actress who would be on the Globe stage, reciting Shakespearean text, and I always had a passion for like kind of Elizabethan and Shakespearean text. And I used to be in a poetry club. I used to enjoy reciting poetry, so I've always loved voice and language. And so being able to help people who they find that English makes a big difference in their lives, being able to help them with something I'm also passionate about, just felt like the right match for me. It just
Yeah.
worked.
Yeah, no, it works. And one of the questions I have for you is, why is learning a language important? I mean, for you on your side, because I know the answer for me, but who watches your video? Who are the people that actually watch the video? If you know have an idea.
Yeah, well, obviously it's quite eclectic. There's especially in terms of location. There's people all over the world, but the students who are, I would say, my loyal students, the ones who stick with me for years and years, who really engage with my content, tend to be students who are actually living in English-speaking countries. So they
Right.
really need the language because
Yeah.
they're either
Okay.
working or studying in
Yeah.
English, and
Yeah.
finding it hard, even though they're in an English speaking country, finding it hard to integrate, and so start to feel a little bit isolated. And I don't know if it's the same with the French, but with the English, there's this tendency not to correct people automatically. So if someone is not a native speaker, starts speaking English and make mistakes, we don't feel like we can correct unless they specifically ask for a correction.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so I think students find that frustrating because, like, well, no one's telling me I'm doing something incorrectly and I need help. So those, I think, are my main students, people working and living in English speaking countries.
An English-speaking country, but not. But I can assume that you have some people watching you that are not in English-speaking country and wish to come to an English-speaking country. You know, someone like in Spain, for example, and France, or so on. Because let's not forget, you teach in English only. Is that correct? So one language.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, I do not do that, and I know that a lot of my competition, if you call it, I don't call it competition, but other YouTubers that teach French, you know, will do it in French only, which is meant to be the best way to learn the language, you know. But yeah, go on.
Well, I was going to say, I think to a certain extent that immersive um, learning does help, but it's not everyone's cup of tea.
No,
It's not
exactly.
everyone's preference.
When you
I was learning Spanish. I used to work on the cruise ships as a singer for 2 years.
right.
And during my time there, I started learning Spanish. They were holding Spanish lessons. And our Spanish teacher, the first one, spoke English and taught us Spanish, and it was great to get started because I had no Spanish knowledge. But then after a few months, she left, and another Spanish teacher came in, and she refused to speak English,
Yeah.
and she lost half the class.
Yeah.
Literally stood up and walked out
Yep.
because they got frustrated. I stuck it out, and I increased my level really fast because I had no choice but to try and understand and work in the language. And for me, it helped. It's not everyone's preference.
So that's very interesting that you stuck with it and it worked, you know, because you stuck with it. But what's interesting is that it lost a lot of people. Now, I tend to find that people that are listening to following my YouTube channel, and there are lots of them, you know, they obviously like the English speaking, you know, the French teaching, but in English, you know, is that, like you said, to start with, it's really good to set the grounds and the basics and the rules. And after that, then yes, move into just one language only, you know. But it's amazing that you realize that by sticking to one language, you started learning way more in Spanish for your case in Spanish. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I've got a couple of questions, you know, in when you start learning a language, and I know that, how long have you been doing this as not as a voice coach, but as an English teacher?
Specific English teacher.
Yeah.
I think 7 years this year.
So, yeah, so you've got quite a lot of experience, you know. What would you say that the top tips are into getting going, into learning a language, whether it's French or English or any other languages?
Yeah, so there's loads of tips you could give, but I think one of the most important things is to start speaking as soon as possible. I think some students feel that they should only start speaking once they have a certain size of vocabulary and understanding of sentence
Yeah.
structure, and they do all the reading and the listening and the writing,
Yeah.
but do very little because there's no confidence there, very little speaking. But what happens then is your level gets to, intermediate perhaps, and you still feel very low when it comes to speaking, and that can start impacting your confidence with the language. I did it with French. I was learning French at school, and I felt like I really was very good at French. And then I went to France, and I tried to speak to this. I was a little girl. Tried to speak to another little girl in the playground about animals, and she just looked at me blankly, like, "Who is this girl? What is she saying to me?" And it knocked my confidence so much that I didn't dare speak another word of French the entire trip.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Yeah.
so yeah, I think trying to speak, making mistakes, just do it from as early as possible. What else would I say? Oh yeah. So along with speaking, I'd also say pay attention to pronunciation quite early on.
Yeah.
My forte being pronunciation and
Right. Of
elocution.
course. Yeah.
I find that correcting habits is much harder than if students just spent more time in the first place understanding the correct pronunciation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if you've been learning a language for 2, 3, 4 or more years, and you've been
Yeah.
saying something in a certain way, it's hard to correct.
You were exactly. I'm pretty certain there are words in English that I pronounce exactly the same way as I pronounced 30 years ago when I arrived in the country. Why? Because nobody ever corrected me.
Yeah.
It's exactly that. I completely agree. Just a quick mention here. People are asking why aren't we speaking French? It's because I have Anna today, who's a specialist in English language, and today it's all about learning, and it's very relevant to you guys who are learning French with me. It's very relevant to understanding what skills you must have in order to learn a language, regardless whether it is French or whether it is English. Okay. Sarah Mann says, once you have intermediate skills and above, how would you improve your conversational skills? So that's open to anybody, especially when there are no native French speakers around. So, but that works for English as well, So, how would you, Anna, once you have an intermediate skills and above, how would you improve your conversational skills? How would you do that?
Lots and lots and lots of practice.
Right.
I think once people get to a certain level, people become obsessed with the fact that they have to work with a native when it comes to speaking. They have to have conversations with natives to improve, but it's not true. Speaking is speaking, and conversations, communicating works and helps you to improve no matter whether it's with another French learner or English learner or with a native speaker. So don't be too picky about the fact that you have to have a native speaker. Just find other people who are willing to speak with you and have conversations as often as possible. We have, I'm not sure if you do as well, but we have a conversation club. And what we do
Right.
for our students is to prepare topics of conversation. So we have every class is a different topic, and we set vocabulary and questions to help people maybe explore different areas of conversation. And that can help, having something that's a bit more varied. So if you can find something that gives you structure, and if you just
Yeah.
have a language partner, a friend, then set a different topic for every conversation that you have. It
So,
is
I mean,
helpful if you can vary your partners as well,
yeah,
so you're
yeah,
not
yeah.
just speaking with the same person.
Someone is saying a club is just a fantastic idea. Sarah Mann, I
Oh,
agree with
someone,
that.
yeah.
And I wrote it down. Don't worry, I have written it down. What was I going to say? Some people might say, well, Anna, I'm sorry, but there is nobody I can practice with. A lot of the time, especially my French students, are not in a French-speaking country and therefore cannot do it and do not have the financial means to do it. So it becomes really hard. I had Elisa from French Morning with Elisa last week live, and she was talking about the shadowing technique. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah, absolutely. We do it a lot over on my website. That's something that I definitely promote as a good
Right, because
technique.
I had never heard of that. And I thought, my gosh, this is so amazing that you can actually speak out loud to yourself, but you are literally repeating what people are saying, with the right pronunciation and so on.
Mhm.
And like you pointed out, pronunciation is key, is key. And I think that with Elisa, one of the most popular videos that she has is the pronunciation videos, of the French one. What are your most popular videos?
Well, funnily enough, I covered a number of regional accents within the UK because we have a
Of course.
phenomenal amount of accents in this very
Amendment.
small
Yeah.
island.
Yeah.
And so I covered those accents. I think Manchester, Liverpool, like a West Country accent, a London accent. So I covered these common popular accents, and those are the ones that just take off every time. People are so interested in the regional accents,
Uh,
not just non-natives, but speakers of those accents are really keen to find out about their own features.
Liam just left a comment saying Yorkshire.
Oh
I
yeah,
don't know
yeah.
the Yorkshire accent. He's very proud of his Yorkshire accent.
Yeah, we
Um,
covered that
uh,
one.
oh my God, the Scots accent. Yeah, Scottish. Great.
Scottish. Yeah.
Again, Scottish. I can't do it. I'm a French person. I can't do
No,
it.
that was good.
Anyway.
That was a good one.
So, Rishab says, please discuss the benefits of learning a new language. So that I think that's a good
Okay.
question.
Yeah. Well, so I think learning anything new, it has to be something you're passionate about for whatever reason. But obviously, learning a new skill is good for the brain, good for the memory, good to keep things fresh. But
I
I
agree.
think learning a new language can do so much for you if you're going to use it in the right way. It can open up so many opportunities, obviously, in
Career,
travel,
career,
in
yeah,
work, in
yeah,
friendship, in
yeah,
romance. You're
yeah,
just opening access to a whole new group of people in the world, and
yeah,
new business opportunities. So
yeah.
I think learning a new language is a wonderful thing to do.
It also helps you understand culture a bit more, because I speak English, I understand the English culture a bit more. I love the intricacy of English language. I absolutely love English humor. Uh, I mean, comparing to my French, the French comedians, for example, we do not say things the same way. We do not have the same sense of humor. And so
Mhm.
I managed over the years, I managed to compare the two. And that was exceptional because I realized, whoa, I love English humor way more than I love French humor, and that was just because I could understand the lingo. So
Mhm.
enjoying the culture, but like you said, in terms of prospects of jobs and meeting new people, friends, and so on. So I'm just trying to read at the same time. I'm sorry. Oh my god. Okay,
But
there's lots of comments now. Wait. um uh, t- 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 I have another question. So the one of the question was, why is it so important? But you've answered these questions, which is really good. What difficulties people have in learning a language, and how do you think they can overcome that? And that's relevant for anybody watching this. Even if you're doing French with me, what difficulties you'd think. I mean, you can tell us in your comment what difficulties you have in learning a language. That would be interesting if you told us, you know.
Mhm.
But what do you think
So
difficulties could be?
the
Yeah, go on.
majority of students that come to my courses, they pretty much say the same thing, and that is, I've reached an intermediate level, or I've been studying the language for a certain amount of time,
Exactly.
but I
Yeah.
still don't feel confident speaking, and sometimes I struggle to understand native speakers. But I really do have a good understanding of language. So why do I struggle to speak and to have these conversations?
Yeah.
So this is why my initial tip for beginning a language is to speak as early as possible, communicate as quickly as possible. But if you have got to a higher level and you're still struggling with your speaking, um, you have this obstacle, and the only way to tackle it is to just start speaking. Even if like making mistakes is good. Don't see making mistakes as a bad thing. Making mistakes is a great thing. Even if you make the same mistake over and over and over again, it's only by making mistakes are you ever going to learn and improve. So you have to go through that process of making those mistakes. So don't feel bad about, what you're saying, what you're doing. Mistakes are good in language learning. The
Yeah,
lady
no,
who you said she was struggling to find a language partner in French.
yeah.
Well, I know it can be tricky, but what we have to be grateful for is the internet. There are so many opportunities now to connect with people all over the world. If I was trying to find a French partner and I couldn't maybe afford to join a conversation club, then I'd find social groups, Facebook groups, or Telegram groups, and groups of other language enthusiasts, and start to connect with people, look at the comments, reply to people, and start to build an affinity with somebody, and then reach out to them and say, hey, do you want to start practicing? Even in your videos, Alexa, if I was looking at your videos, I'd look at the comments, look at some of the comments I like and say, hey, are you interested in doing some additional practice with me? Because, chances are someone will be interested.
Someone will be interested. Yeah, it's it's very interesting. We've got very good points coming up this way. Karen says, how do you move on to another language without losing what you have in you first? Foreign language. So Karen, I understand. Take me, for example. I'm really bad at speaking French. So this is, do you know why? Because I've been in England for 30 years and I am starting to lose my French. It sounds crazy, but everything comes up in English, and when I speak to my content creators and they are French, we tend to do some franglais, a lot of franglais. And when it comes to, because I teach in English as well, it's really, really hard, So what I tend to do at the moment, I read in French, I listen to French radio, a podcast, and I watch a lot of French shows in order to get me going. My brain's not switching to English necessary. So I'm not sure if this is the question you have. And yeah, no, carry on. Go on.
I've interviewed a couple of polyglots recently, and
Right.
one of the questions that I posed to them was about switching between languages. So one chap knew 20 languages, and
wow.
But they all admit that they don't always have all of those languages ready, at the click of a finger to be able to just come out with it. They do.
I mean, it's quite the gymnastic.
Yeah, they do always have to do, like you said, they have to, listen to something in the language, spend a little time reading up in that language again in order to bring it back to the front of their mind. And so I think if you have a good basis in a language, if you've been learning it long enough, I don't think learning another language, a new language, will push it out completely as long as you continue to dip in to that language. If you're trying to learn two new languages at the same, like if I started now learning, I don't know, if I was learning French and Spanish or Italian and Spanish at the same time, both new languages, that would be a disaster. So don't do that. And that's what the polyglots say as well. Don't do that.
Right.
Learn one at a time.
One at a time. Right. Okay. Yeah. That's a very good advice. One at a time. Very quickly, Kajin says to pronounce film is too difficult. So Kajin, if you're doing the shadowing technique and you want to repeat what they said in a film, do you know that on Netflix, you have the possibility of slowing things down? I didn't know that. Someone told me that not that long ago, that you can slow down the speech. So if it is becoming too difficult, it's fast English, fast whatever, French. When I watch the French shows on Netflix, sometimes I think, wow, I do not speak at that speed at all, And Anna, you have such a beautiful way of talking. I can't imagine you speaking super fast unless you are being extremely careful. But it could be a déformation professionnelle. That means that because you're an English teacher, you speak in a very eloquent, very articulate way. Like when I speak in French, I can't speak fast anyway. But if you're trying to shadow a speech of a film, you know, just slow it down, and then accelerate if you want. Another very good point from Sarah Mann, she said the use of idioms in particular can rapidly give one seeming fluency. English has so many peculiarities, you know, and so does French, ha ha ha, you know, but it's true. So
Yeah.
you guys have so many words and so many idioms, you know, it's incredible.
A phrasal verbs.
Phrasal verbs, you have so many, you know. How do you challenge how do you challenge how do you do you know how do you learn so many idioms that are very necessary, or phrasal, you know, phrasal verbs? No, phrasal verbs, you
Phrasal
call them?
verbs. Phrasal verbs. Yeah.
Yeah. How do you do that? What's the tip?
Yeah. So the tip is learn them one at a time, and when you find one you like, put it into context as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
I'm not really a fan of lists, although if you look at my YouTube channel, there's plenty of lists that you can
Yes.
find in the videos, because that's, you know, they perform well.
Yeah.
But if you were to watch a listicle video, so here's 10 idioms for feeling happy, make a note of the ones you like and you think, I love that idiom, I'm going to use that, and then
Yes.
physically write it down, because
Yes.
there is science to say that physically writing things has an impact on memory. So physically write down the ones you like, and then make an effort to use those idioms in speech or in writing as soon as possible and repetitively. So once that same day, once the next day, once the following week, and once the following month, because repetition of something new is the only way to retain that information. And that, unfortunately, is the only way to really onboard these kinds of language. And, you know, this is also another reason why, you know, doing a lot of listening, watching programs, seeing language in context is important, because you'll start to understand things in context.
So what do you mean by that?
So just learning a list doesn't really help unless you understand how it's properly used in a situation. You know, there are plenty of phrasal verbs that you can understand the meaning of, but they might have a nuance where they're only used in a certain situation.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But there are plenty of opportunities out there to onboard big amounts of vocabulary. I know a lot of the language teachers do like monthly challenges to help you onboard huge amounts of vocabulary. I'm not sure if you have those as well. These kind of language challenges.
So for us, we have, of course, the very popular videos we have on YouTube on vocabulary, you know, lists and lists of the jobs and the animals and the part of the body or whatever. But we have part of our memberships as well receive every week vocabulary builders, where we give a list of vocabulary, and they have a week to learn them, and then they have a quiz at the end of the weeks. And this is
Fantastic.
part of one of the perks that we give. And of course, on our website, we have so many quizzes where people can practice, you know, their vocabulary. And I know that you have a website as well. So tell us a little bit about this one and what you can do on the website.
Yeah, so englishlikeanative.co.uk is the site, and there we have an offering of multiple products, but our main focus is our 12-month fluency program. So the idea is that we try and immerse students in the language. And once they join, they have lifetime access to all the courses. So there's B1, B2, C1, C2 courses, and business course, and a pronunciation course along with an assessment. So they have an idea of what they should be focusing on with pronunciation. And we do have a library. So we have a library of, I don't know, 150, 200 PDFs that we're always updating. And that gives them all the groundwork they need. So all the grammar and additional vocabulary. And we're always updating that. But the idea is that they become part of this community, and we have lots of conversation classes that they have to get involved in, regular conversation every week. They have tasks to complete. They have to interact. And you start using the language and making the language very relevant to them. And so we take them from an intermediate level, lower intermediate, through to feeling fluent and confident, and giving them the tools to try and find an English speaking job as well. So that's the basis of what we do, but we also offer lots of little things as well.
Yeah, so you address everything. When I said give me the top tips, and you said, okay, well, vocabulary, the speaking, the pronunciation, and get into the right habits very early. That's what you said. Have the conversational club, and repetition is very important. And do a lot of listening and seeing languages in context, and communication as early as possible. So all of this is part of the website, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay,
absolutely.
Excellent. If we have any questions, because we will shortly stop this live, which I'm thoroughly enjoying. One last question, Anna. What would you say to someone who says it's too late to learn a language? For example, I have pupils that are 80 years old, and they are still learning.
That's amazing.
French with me.
That's amazing.
But what if you said, "Oh, it's too late"? What would you say to this person?
I'd say look up Steve Kaufman. Steve Kaufman.
Oh, yes.
His surname spelled Kauf, F, I think, or maybe it's one F, Man. You'll find him. Lingo Steve is also known as. He's 76, and he's the one who knows 20 languages, and he's still learning new languages. I think at the moment he's learning Persian. He's really tackling some amazing languages, and he thinks it's ridiculous to say that you're too old. You're never too old.
But that's what Misha says. That there is no such thing as too late. You're never too old to learn. Misha, thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And could you advise me on how I can improve communication? A language can speak single word, but so difficult when I try to speak a long sentence. I know that. I mean, it's very, very difficult to answer this question. On our side, we are extremely based on grammar and conjugation at Learn French with Alexa. As a matter of fact, I surrounded myself with experts. They're way better than me, at grammar. And so we base ourselves on people understanding a basic of conjugation, understanding a basic of grammar, putting small sentences together. It doesn't have to be huge, but understanding the concept of sentence building. And if you can do that, then you will be understood once you start speaking. And the better you are at being, understood, the better there will be a communication back. So well, I understand what you mean. Let's start a conversation. It's really hard to answer, advice on improving communication.
I think one thing. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
No, that's perfect.
Just thinking on this specific point, he said he can only speak in one word at a time, and is struggling to put things together.
Yeah.
And this is the same mistake I made when I was learning French, is that I wanted to understand every single word, how it translated into my language. And then I thought, well, that if I know the words in my language, if I can translate them, then I can put them all together like I do in my language, but it doesn't work.
No.
So my advice would be learn phrases. Don't worry about the meanings of the individual words. Just know what the phrases mean. And try and think about, in any given situation, what are the common things you say? So how do you introduce yourself? Hi, my name's Anna. I'm 40 years old. I have 2 kids. Write down some sentences that you would say regularly. How did you sleep last night? I slept really well, thank you. And then find the translations for them, get them translated, and practice those phrases, because then you're going to feel more confident, because the things that you say regularly, you know what they are in your target language. So gather a toolbox of phrases and don't worry too much about individual words is my advice to get going.
No, it's a very good advice, because you've got 2 kinds of learners here. You've got the learners that love the formulaic, method of learning the language, which is good. But we find that the people following us, and there is a comment saying, "Oh, that's the reason why I love your channel, Alexa, because it's so grammar based. The focus on grammar." These kind of people are going to they have a an objective, and quite a lot of the time would be a diploma that they are taking, and things like that. And so they are going to want to get to a certain C1 level, and in order to get there, they are going to learn their past pluperfect or whatever, or past conditional, but understand what they are, and because this is what's going to get them points during the exam. So if you use a past conditional, if you use the linking words, or if you use the right negation, whatever. So there are different types of objectives in languages. I love the formulaic method as well, who says I can't believe your age? I struggle.
I think because I said I'm 40.
Oh, you're 40.
Well, do you know what? I realised as I said it, I'm actually 41. It was my birthday last week, and I forget that I've just turned another year.
So well, it's okay. I'm 10 years older than you, Anna. So,
age is just a number. It's
yes. Listen, it was absolutely amazing. I've enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah, me too.
It was really, really, really cool. But I'm going to stop the questions here because we could go on and on about it, trying to answer the questions. And what I like is that though it is from Learn French with Alexa, we had questions and we had pertinent, questions too. And even though that, we're doing the same thing, but not in the same for the same language. So Paul Ramon says, "Joyeux anniversaire to you."
Merci.
It's super cool. Listen, it was absolutely lovely to talk to you. I enjoyed that very, very much. Richard says, "Merci beaucoup, Madame Alexa et Madame Anna." There you go.
Thank you.
So have a beautiful rest of the day. And for all of you guys, if you have more and if you want more information, go to Anna's website, which is
englishlikeanative.co.uk.
There you go, englishlikeanative.co.uk. And for me, it's learnfrenchwithalexa.com, quite simply, or learnfrench.com. It works too. So in the description, I think Liam put it in the description, I think. Oh, it's in the description of that video. Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Bye.